stuck back there. Come on out of that cave. Come on you out. Can build your own house. There is liberty. Don't you know? Have you heard? You have been set free. We are free thinkers. We're free. We are free thinkers.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. Come on in the house. Welcome home. We are so glad that you are here today. We are so glad that you're here this evening. My name is Janice Pons. I am the host of this podcast, From Destruction to Dignity, Clinical Perspectives, Spiritual Truths. Now, the title of the podcast says a lot. We talk about clinical things, but, by training and by profession, I'm a clinician, but this is for educational purposes. This is not therapy, and we always have the little runner down there that goes across it. This is not therapy. This is for to provoke thought. You know what I'm about? Provoking thought, bringing awareness, and pointing people towards intervention if they decide that they may need it. So I like provoking thought because people grow. When my thoughts got provoked and I became aware of things that maybe had just been put to the side or that I was in complete denial of, it was just like, oh, I didn't even know that was existing, let alone being an issue. Okay. And so once you become aware, you have to kind of decide what you're going to do about it. And so that's what this podcast is about, and many, many more things. And so I am just so privileged, so honored, so blessed, so amazed at this podcast and what's happening. And, we're just going from faith to faith and glory to glory. And, my creed is that I am crucified with Christ, yet I live. Yet not I, yet not Janice, yet not I, but Christ lives in me. And the life that I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. That looks like something. And so part of that journey of wellness and recovery, I'm learning it involves a crucifixion, becoming alive to him, which is a beautiful thing. And so learning what that looks like in your life is, I just invite you to just embrace it and see where it takes you. It's a great thing. Speaking of where something takes you, as you can see, we have this lovely, gorgeous lady here, Jen Buchanan. Welcome.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Yes. Hey, we are honored. Let me tell you about Jen. I met Jen, I think it was 2016. Someone blessed me for my birthday with a massage. Now, I always wanted a massage. And the man I was married to was like, you're not going to get no massage. You're not getting a massage. I said, baby, why? I want a massage. He said, why? I said, well, just tell me why. He said, because nobody's going to put their hands on your body but me. Okay. Well, why don't we go get one together? And we can be in the same room. You can have a man massage. Now, he said, no man putting his hand on you. I said, well, let a woman put her hand on me and you be in the room. It'll be okay. It's all right, baby. Come here. Let's go get a massage together. He wouldn't buy into it. I was like, okay. So anyway, long story short, now see, he's in heaven now. He's got a glorified body. So anyway, he's not concerned about a massage, but I'm still down here on the earth, okay? And so as I learned to embrace self-care, one of those things I did not experience was a massage. And I wanted one.
Yeah.
So, he slipped on out of here. So I can do what I want to do now. I can do what I want to do now, and I can pay for it. So I went to get a massage at this particular place where Jen was at that time. And then I kept hearing about this lady named Jen, and she does deep tissue massage. I was like, I don't even know what that is. So I booked her, and I was like, oh, what is this? And so once I experienced Jen Buchanan and her masterful skills and anointed hands on my body as a massage therapist, I was like, I don't want nobody else. I mean, once you've had the best, she's like, I'm not gonna settle for nothing that's subpar, you know. So I began to pursue her. So I had her a couple times, then we lost touch, and then my son kind of I don't remember how we got reconnected, but I was so glad to meet this lady again. So beautiful, so amazing. I did not know a lot about Jen, but I just knew she was good at her trade, that she just had this powerful anointing and skills with her hands that made me feel better, because I, at that time, and everyone on this podcast knows that I talk about wellness, recovery. It's observable, it's measurable. In other words, what will you be seen doing that lets you know you're pursuing recovery and you're getting well? And so, observable, we saw Janice go get a massage. Oh, you did? Yeah, she went over there. And how many times? She goes twice a month. That's measurable. Out of 30 days, 2 of those days, I'm under the mighty hands of this woman. That's observable and that's measurable, and that's a part of my wellness. And so, God bless you up in heaven. Okay, you up there now. So I don't have to answer to anybody. I can go get a massage. I can go every week if I want to, but I go twice a week. She and I have worked it out. Jen is my massage therapist, and she is the massage therapist of some other amazing ladies that are in my life. And they're just like, she is good, you know. And so Jen and I have become very close because, I mean, when you, okay, when you go get a massage, you're taking all your clothes off. You got to trust the person. And she honors boundaries. She's very healthy. She's very professional, and I trust the process. I'm going to say this. I went and got a massage one time when I couldn't get into her, and there was a violation of a boundary. And I was like, that wasn't right. Something wasn't right about that. And I was like, I'll never come back here again. And I can't prove what you just did, but I discerned by the Holy Ghost too that something was inappropriate. Like, what is this place? What is this place? So that wasn't my place. And I knew that I can establish and honor a boundary within my life. And I knew that this lady was very professional. She had boundaries, and she was concerned about me and me operating at my optimal health. So, welcome, Jen.
Thank you.
Jen has a, let me tell you how Jen ended up on the podcast. Of course, it's a God ordained thing. But Jen and I were talking recently. I came in for my therapy session, and Jen said to me, "Can I tell you something?" Well, now see, anybody that Jen knows that when I get my massage therapy session, I don't want to talk. She'll say, "Go ahead and go to your happy place." That means I'm like,
I'll wake you up when you turn over.
I mean something. I go to a place because just the contact and what she does, it's just like I float on off. And so I've learned to yield to the process because I trust it. First of all, she's very professional, she's godly, and I get the benefit of it. So I've learned to trust this process. So I've gone off, and so it's like, okay, she want to talk a little bit. So she so she was doing her work, but in the beginning she was just sharing, Miss Janice, let me tell you what I'm doing. So she's just started naming these things that were going on in her life that were very powerful. And I'm like, what? Wow, Jen, that's really amazing. That's really powerful. And so she said one thing, she said another, then she said another, then she said another. And then I said, Jen, a lot of the things you're talking about that you've started to do and to implement, these are things that I talk about on the podcast. She said to me, Miss Janice, you do know that I follow everything you do. She was like, it's like, I listen to everything you do. I see what you post. So we have the podcast. And I was like, so what I'm hearing is that a lot of the things that you've heard me talk about on this podcast, from destruction to dignity, clinical perspective, spiritual truths, are things that she's implementing in her life. Let me tell you, I was blessed. And I was like, God, in my mind, I was thinking, if it was for nobody but her and her family, when you hear this testimony, the Bible says we overcome the enemy. We have enemies in our lives, and it will manifest in different ways. And it says we overcome him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. the word of our testimony. Word, you're going to be speaking something, a testimony, you're going to share. Something's going to come out of your mouth. And what I learn a lot of times is a testimony comes out of a test. It is a part of that word testimony. And this young woman began to share with me some things from her heart. And I was so moved. And so we just talked, and one thing led to another. And I was like, you're doing the very thing I talk about on the podcast. And so she agreed to be a part of this. And I'm just so thrilled because, Jen, you are exhibit A of what can happen when someone becomes intentional. You all know I talk about that all the time. If we could ever become intentional, what would happen if you go, okay, wait a minute, I hadn't even looked at that area of my life. So if I look at that and I'm purposeful and I'm intentional to be implementing observable and measurable strategies, skills, and tools, what might happen? If you don't like it, go back to the old way. But if you like it, you might go, wait a minute. What was that all about? This is how you go from faith to glory to glory. We're not sitting around, while I'm waiting on the Lord and I'm going to pray, I'm waiting on my change to come. What does that mean? What does that look like? Do you have a part to play in it? Is God going to do it? It's just like you waiting on the angels to come and sweep you up. What are we talking about? And so, I'm always talking about those strategy, skills, and tools. Strategy, skills, and tools. I need to write a song called Strategy, Skills, and Tools and sing it. And it's very applicable in our lives. And so when she shared her story, when she shared her testimony, I was beyond blessed. And so Jen agreed to come on and just to be a part of our audience, and to be a part of our podcast, and to share with our audience just her journey, and just to share this walk that you've been on in embracing some of the concepts and principles that you have gleaned from just looking at this podcast. So welcome.
Thank you.
Have your liberty. Just kind of share with the audience what's been going on.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for having me on here.
You're welcome.
Some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about, actually, it did come from this, but also it came from just listening to Miss Janice speak to me, blessing me every time that I work on you. You say things to me about, raising your son, who I know personally, and he's such a stand-up person and such a example of manhood in this world, and I want my kids to be raised that way. I have 3 boys, and they are all boys. And, there's a whole thing in my life where, you try things with them and you try to teach them different things, and you say, oh, that didn't work. Let me try it this way, And so we're trying a new thing in our family right now, where we pick a word instead of a New Year's resolution and all of that. And we pray over it. And we talk about it before we pick it. And this year's word is health. And the word health to our family means spiritual, financial. It means physical. It means mental. It means just focusing on what is best in our little bubble of 5 people. And then from there, taking those lessons out into our community and learning, is this a healthy thing for us? Great. Is it a healthy thing for the community? Can we contribute in some way? And so, these things sort of snowball into other things that will lead to glorious things, not just in our family, but in the world. And so, and this, I think, will teach my boys some tools that will help guide them to make better decisions in their lives as they get older and become men. And so what I shared with Miss Janice was that, over the past few years, we've struggled in our family a little bit with just kind of guidance and knowing exactly where we fit in the world and where we fit into our family together. And, their father and I have decided that we really want to focus on our little bubble of 5 people, the 3 boys, me, and him. And we decided that our best bet with this is to pick a word and then make that our yearly thing. So we decided to sit down with the boys and talk to them about it and say, this is our word, and what does this mean to you? And so they kind of threw some stuff at me about it and said, well, I think health means that we feel good and we're not sick. And I said, okay, well, that's good. And then we kind of went further, and I said, the world needs people to be kind and people to be good to themselves and people to be healthy inside themselves so that they can be healthy for the rest of the world. Filling up that cup. It's something that people say, they don't always do.
Right.
But it's something, and in my job, that is a huge thing too. You have to fill up your cup before you can take care of somebody else,
Right.
And so in our unit, I feel like we're filling up our cup as a family so that we can give to the world as we need to, as we're called to do.
Right.
So that's kind of the whole situation with the family, and that's what I talked about with you last night.
Right. And so as we begin to share together, one thing that came up to me, and often in this podcast, I talk about being intentional. You have to be intentional. And so when she said things like, me and the boys decided we would do this. Well, one thing you said you all were going to do was have dinner at the table.
Yes.
I've said that before. Anybody that's watched my podcast, I said, whoa, what a novel idea. If we sit around at the dinner table, that's what we used to do growing up in the 60s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. I'm dating myself. Yeah. And so that's what we did, but it was our time together. I mean, now people are running to and fro and they don't sit down, they don't eat together, they don't fellowship. But what a missed opportunity. So they made a decision that's observable, that's measurable. They will, sometimes you just might have to eat on the run, but they have made an intentional decision to sit down at the dinner table together. And you were saying that, it was like, well, instead of we're done, we're just gonna put the dishes on the countertop and we'll get to them later. Well, they can sit there, they'll be there the next day or whatever. But what they made an intentional decision to do was when they finish eating to rinse the dishes and put them in the dishwasher.
Yeah. And it wasn't even just me that came up with that. The kids just kind of did it. And then I asked them, when you did that, was that a decision based on what we talked about? And they said, yes, we think that it will be healthier for our family if instead of setting things on the counter, we actually put them in the dishwasher. It's a tiny step really in the grand scheme of things, but it's teaching them to be intentional. It's teaching them to be respectful.
It's a huge step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little step, but it's a big step.
It's a big step because, see, she's teaching her boys how to connect the dots. And they're seeing like, oh, I can affect my world. I can be intentional. I can be organized. I can be solution focused. I can be a blessing to mom. I can be a blessing to myself. I can be bring peace and harmony in my home. Oh, we don't have roaches. It's just like cause and effect relationship, connection. And there's so many things that you can learn with children and our youth if we interact with them and think that way. When I worked as a teacher and a school psychologist, this is how I came in those schools. It's like, this is how we're going to teach them to think. They got to see connections. And now kids are just running roughshod. They, it's all in their emotions, and we're going to cuss and fight and hit and snatch off wigs and rip bras off and bite and kick and stomp heads and inflict traumatic brain injuries. Hold on, time out. What are we doing? So she's teaching these boys how to be men, how to slow down. What does it look like? And so when she's priming a pump, and when we do that, what will happen? They start spontaneously doing healthy things.
Yeah.
That are just a blessing.
Just out of nowhere, they just started doing things just because I gave them that one question to ask: is this healthy for our family unit? Even if it's just for us, it's great. They're taking that to school, and they're taking that with their friends, and they're asking questions with their teachers. And when we get back in the car after school, they're saying things to me like, I went to go get seconds at lunch and I thought, is this healthy for me to get another slice of pizza, or should I just get a banana? And they grab the banana. It's just little things like that that are going to build, and they'll be measurable, like you said, that they'll be able to see. You're
teaching them to be mindful, to really think about what we're doing, not just running roughshod and going, okay, sarah, whatever will be, will be. Well, really, And so this is, it's just so beautiful to see you grasp those principles with your boys and to actually see them implemented. Now, I want you to kind of touch upon like bedtime. You would say that's a lot of times in homes, that's a big struggle. Go to bed. It's like, y'all be quiet, go to bed. And it's like, oh, all heck breaks loose at bedtime. And it's like, why is it falling apart at bedtime when we're supposed to be winding down and being peaceful? And it's hollering and fussing, and for some folk cussing, and then we've all into a physical brawl. It's like, oh, baby, that's not what bedtime's about. We're supposed to be winding down, cuddling. We're supposed to hug good night, baby. I love you. God bless you. Now lay me down to sleep. Okay. And so what was going on at bedtime? And
Yeah.
then what did you change, and what was the outcome?
Okay, so bedtime with 3 boys. Any parents know, and boys, I know you're probably going to watch this, so I'm just going to tell your business, but you know. So these sweet boys,
They're sweet.
They-
I love those boys.
they're
One
so
of them,
sweet.
whenever I see him, he gives me a hug. He prayed for me. Anyway, go ahead. He's sweet. They're all sweet.
They are.
They're amazing boys.
They are kind.
Yeah.
But they're boys.
Yeah.
They get a little distracted and playful at bedtime. You start at 8:30. It's time for bed, and it takes 45 minutes to get in bed because they'll start brushing their teeth and walk away and things like that.
But what time is bedtime?
9.
So okay, so it takes 45 minutes. So if they're not in there to 9:15, we're off track.
Oh yeah.
So what kind of message are you giving them? It's like, well, mama don't mean what she say. She don't mean what she say. She just say 9. She say 9. But we can play her anytime we get ready. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I was starting to learn that was happening myself. That
Mhm.
kind of thought process. That's why I wanted to nip it. So
Mhm.
when we started this, just a few days ago, this started, and I said to them, at bedtime we're going to start at 8:30. You're going to go and brush your teeth. You're going to get in bed and you're going to read, because they have assignments at school that they need to read for, just regular books. And so this is a perfect time for them to read and also wind down.
Mhm.
But also, you can't just tell them to do these things. You have to do them yourself. Otherwise, you're just kind of hypocritically telling your kids, well, do this, but don't do what I do.
Hold that point. So what we're talking about is being good models.
Yes.
Like I was talking about the little boy, that little 4-year-old boy. I'm like, I'm grown. And he was grabbing his crotch, talking about I'm grown, and getting ready to turn the table over. Hello. So where did he learn that from? It's like, wow, what has he been exposed to? So modeling is real important. And in that particular setting, they were laughing at him. The grown people were laughing and just thinking it was the most hilarious thing. Then look at him. And I was like, oh my God, look at the reinforcement that is being given to this little 4-year-old for such atrocious behavior. And he was being groomed, and no one was giving him redirection. So you're like, well, wait a minute, I'm not gonna be no hypocrite to my own
Yeah.
boys. Keep going.
Yeah. So I actually talked to their father about this, and he has a bunch of new books for Christmas that he says, I want to read. But things get so chaotic that we don't really have a chance to do that. So we put our books on our nightstands.
Mm-hmm.
And actually tonight will be our first trial with getting the boys in bed and reading their books. And then we will also do the same thing. And so I think us doing that is also going to be good for our sleep. And we'll be kinder parents. We'll be more present with our kids with that. So it's beneficial to us to model that behavior. And then they'll see the change in us as well as the change in themselves when they do this. So we're hoping that this model and that this routine will change just day-to-day life for us.
Mm-hmm.
Just more sleep and more focused bedtime, more focused attention on getting themselves ready, and instead of being all scattered at bedtime, having that routine is so important, and we've kind of let that go. And now we're bringing that back, and we're trying to keep it because it's so important in our family.
Structure. What you're talking about, that routine is structure, is predictable.
Yeah.
It's not chaotic. Mom and dad are doing it too.
Yeah.
We're doing it together as a unit. And then it gives you more to even process and talk about. How does it feel to be rested? Oh, we're going to bed at 9 o'clock. Everybody, we turn the lights off. Y'all going to bed because you got to get up at a given time.
Yeah.
And it's not like, oh, I'm just going to sleep in because I'm tired, Mama. I don't want to go to school. And it's like, I don't need to, baby. Just turn the light. We can really make some poor choices and be poor models, or we can do just the opposite.
Mhm.
And so when you implemented it that first time, it was like you were talking about, I was in the hallway and was like, this is what we're doing.
Mhm.
They
Yeah.
were right on the money.
They were, and they got in their bed, and one of the kiddos had a book that he had to read for school the next day, and he had it done before he went to sleep, and he was so proud of himself. I don't have to get up early and read this book, So they're
Sense of
seeing the measurements.
Sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
So, okay. So that's with your family.
Yeah.
Now, so you made some personal changes for yourself. You got a journal.
Mhm.
And you wanted it to be real specific. You didn't just want some general journal. You wanted it to be
Homework.
homework.
Yeah.
You wanted homework. She wanted observable, measurable assignments for herself, where she was writing out goals and putting like a prayer journal of not just, well, do this 4 times a day. It was real specific to her soul, her being transformed and changed, her mind being renewed. Talk a little bit about that.
Well,
We're talking about self-care.
yes.
We're kind of segueing into self-care here.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So for me this year, I really wanted to focus on my self-care and getting myself taken care of so that I could take care of everybody else. It's that oxygen mask on first mentality that I preach to everybody else, but I don't do myself. So now I'm trying to make sure that I remedy that. So I got a therapist that is a Christian therapist that is going to help guide me in some of these things that I'm going to be doing with the journaling.
Am I always talking about get a therapist?
Yes.
You go to my website, janicepons.com, www.janicepons.com. Go to the resource page. It'll show you, it'll click here. It'll take you to how to get a therapist, what to look for. Tell them how you decided who was gonna be your therapist. Talk about that. That's just good stuff.
It's the journal thing that started it.
Okay.
I found this journal that basically it's basically a homework workbook, if you will.
Mhm.
And you just fill out all the paper and you just fill out all the questions, and it asks you, what are you grateful for today? I mean, simple things like that
Mhm.
that make you stop and think. And then through all of that, I thought, you know what, I really think I need a therapist, because I want to talk through some of these things, that just not write them down, but also kind of guide me through day-to-day life.
You want to process it. You want to give a
Yes.
language to it.
And
We
I
talk
want
about
somebody
that.
to give me that homework.
Yeah.
This is what I want you to practice this week. And just keep building on it every day and every week until I feel like I'm able to kind of do some of these things on my own.
Mhm.
But I feel like at this point, I feel like therapy can be a lifelong thing, because you just grow and change.
Well, okay. So here's the thing. When you're getting a therapist, you have to have a therapist that fits you. And I always say, what I'm taught in this industry is go at least 3 times. But she did her homework before she chose a therapist. She knew you wanted someone that was trauma informed. You wanted them to be a Christian. You knew you wanted a female.
Yes.
And you wanted someone who was going to give you homework. I mean, when you were talking, I was like, oh my God, this woman's got it going on. You knew what you were looking for. So it just honed it down for you in terms of so much specificity of who fit you. And you knew this looks like a perfect fit for me.
Yeah.
And so this is so powerful, because the therapeutic process, which I tell you, I've submitted myself to probably, I went this many sessions, because it just kept unfolding. And then I also did recovery support groups with a sponsor, which is just like 6 more months of therapy. It really changed my life. And so Jen is just like a living example of that. I want us to, put a picture of her boys that actually she's going to be coming back for another episode. And so we're going to dive in, because we're going to dissect this self-care. So see, what this is exhibit A. Her family is exhibit A of what self-care looks like. They're embracing it. They're planning it. They're intentional. And see, with her being a massage therapist, that really takes that specificity of how she administers self-care to others down a specific pathway. And then she shared her own testimony of what she's done in her family, with her husband, with her boys, and they're all on the same page. And the word that we want to take away with her is that they are very intentional. Now, what she's done, this keeps families out of destructive patterns, because all we're about, remember, And when we come back in, you got to keep coming back because we're going to unpack some more things because we're going to really dive into some self-care. But we want to prevent our children, our families, our marriages, our lives from going into destructive patterns. And if we just so happen to get into that unhealthy flow, we can implement observable strategies, skills, and tools that takes us from destruction to dignity. Listen, y'all better keep coming back here. You better come next week because Jen's going to be with us because we're going to flow and we're going to unpack some things related to self-care. See you next week. Love you. See you then. Bye.
Bye.
We are God empowered, strength is ours, liberty, been set free, education, affirmation, dedication, information, revelation, a new